Hi guys, today I'm doing a video that goes over the Algebra 2 Unit 1 Study Guide practice test. Here is the first question. So the question is, and I got a couple of questions in class, I didn't realize this was a little bit hard to understand. All you have to do is match the correct equation with the graph. And it's multiple choice, A, B, C, and D. Now the easiest way to eliminate some is that all of these start with U sub 0. Right, which is where it's going to cross the x-axis. And obviously on the graph, I'm going to bring my mouse over here, on the graph, that is 8. So we can cancel out A and D already. We know it's got to be B and C. And it's not a straight line, so it's not going to be C, where you're subtracting the same number each time. It's going to be B, where you are multiplying by the same number each time. And you can see that's correct. If you're multiplying by half, the second one would be 4. And then 2, and then 1, and then so on. So let's see, what's next? Oh, what is the 10th term in this geometric sequence if U sub 1 is 0.7? So we have 0.7, 7, 70, 700. Now this question gave you that it was a geometric sequence, so obviously we're multiplying by the same number each time. The numbers are getting bigger. Normally you could take like 7 and divide it by 0.7 and 70 and divide it by 7 and get your common ratio, which is your little r, your common ratio. In this one, I can just tell you're multiplying by 100 each time. So you can just make a table or do it on your calculator. But the first one was 0.7. The second one was 7, 70, 700, 4, 700, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not going to do the whole thing for you, but each time if you multiply by 10, you'll get the next one. And I think 10 ends up being 7 with 8 zeros. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 700 million. Okay, let's see what's next. 3, a company with 12 employees is growing at a rate of 20% per year. It will need to hire more employees to keep up the growth, assuming its business keeps growing at the same rate. How many people should the company plan to hire in each of the next 5 years? So you can either write a recursion plan for this or write an explicit. I think the explicit is a little bit easier to write. So what I said was, so here's our explicit formula. If you remember, I think this is question 3, you guys. Our explicit formula is f of n is equal to our explicit geometric f of 1 times your common ratio to the n minus 1. So I said that f of n, I said my f of 1 was 12. Okay, so at the beginning of the first year, I'm going to have 12 employees, right? And that'll be my first year in context of the problem. Then each year, I'm going to gain 20% employees. I need 20% per year for my growth, and my employees should keep up with my growth. So there's my original 100%, and then there's my 20%. So the number I'm going to get out of this equation is going to be the total number of employees for that year. So we'll have to go back and see how many employees it is per year. Oh, that's an F of n, you guys. All right, so if you make a table out of this, you get your first year. Okay, we have 12 employees. Your second year, 14.4. And then so on, 17.28. 20.736, 24.883. All right, I already forgot what the question was asking. There's your table. How many people should the company plan to hire in each of the next 5 years? So then you're going to have to go back. The second year, obviously, you just subtract. It's going to be 2.4 employees. I know it doesn't make sense when you're dealing with actual number of people. You could round that up to 3 if you wanted to, as long as you explained what you were doing. But that might not make sense when we're trying to see for the whole 5 years. So that's really up to you. Just if you do that, please explain what you're doing. And then if you just keep finding those numbers, that would be the answer. 17 minus 14.4, that would be the amount of people you hire that year, and so on and so forth. And then part B, how many employees will it have 5 years from now? Well, that was my answer, which was 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I think you have to go up one more, right? One more time. Let me put that into the calculator. And we had 12 times 1.2. We want to go up to the 6th year to the power of 6 minus 1. The 6th term there, 29.86. So 29.86. So for that last question, how many employees will it have 5 years from now? Obviously, that's going to be, I would round that up to 30 employees 5 years from now. Okay. If you have questions, please make sure. I would try this on your own and actually find all of the numbers and figure out how that works. But come in with a question if you have a question on number 3. Number 4, oh, this was a fun one. Number 4, an auditorium has 20 seats in the first row, 24 seats on the second row, 28 seats in the third row. So obviously we're going up by 4 seats each time, but my very first row has 20 seats. So for question number 4, my U sub 1 is going to be 20, right? And then you're adding 4 seats each time. In this case, since we're going to have to find a sum or do the sigma, okay, where I think there's 30 rows, so our index value is going to be the first row, and our upper value is going to be the 30th row. We're going to need an explicit formula right here to make the sum, to make the series work. So let's write an explicit formula for adding 4 each time to this. So here's the f of n, here's the formula. It's f of 1 plus your common difference, right, times n minus 1. And what is that going to look like in here? It's going to be my f of 1 is, how many were in the first? 20. We're in the first row. Plus my common difference, we're adding 4 each time, times n minus 1. Okay, and we're going to put that into the calculator and find out how many rows. Let's do that now. So make sure your mode, that you are in sequence mode. So we want it over here. It's on function. We want it over here in sequence. And then second, stat. And we want to sum first. So go over to math, sum, and then second, stat, ops, sequence. And then, oh, I forgot this was an old one. Then we want to enter in our equation. So 20 plus 4 times And then this button here, n minus 1, parenthesis, comma, n, remember it wants the variable, then my starting value, which is the first row, and then my upper value, which is the 30th row. Oops, not the 300th row. Oh no! All right, I'm gonna pause that while I type it into again. Oh, that was so frustrating. Okay, I typed it in again. I'm gonna hit enter. There we go. In the entire auditorium, there are 2,340 seats. So you can just put the equal sign there, and that's 2,340 seats. All right, let's do question number 5. What is question number 5? Write a recursive formula that models the following sequence: 6 over 4, 6 over 16, 6 over 64. And it doesn't tell you if it's geometric or if it's arithmetic, but let's see. With the 6 over 4, that was the first one. Let me double check it. And then 6 over 16, and then 6 over 64. It's since the numerators staying the same each time, we're not adding anything. What we're doing is multiplying. And it looks like what we're multiplying is by 1/4, right? 6 times 1 is 6, and I knew I was going to get that back, and 4 times 4 is 16. Then if I multiply this by 1/4, 6 times 1 is 6, 16 times 4 is 64, so my common ratio is 1/4. And it just wants a recursive formula, so I need to say my first value is 6 over 4. And then, and I don't think you'll get in trouble on the test if you don't do the n is greater than or equal to whatever. If that confuses you, don't do it. I just brought that up because there are other questions that have it in there, and I wanted you to recognize what it was. But for this one, we can say u sub n is equal to u sub the previous term, the predecessor, times 1/4. Done and done. Question 6. Your Uncle Bud dies and leaves you $500 you invested in a bank account that earns 10% annual interest compounded monthly. Just all you have to do for these words here is remember compounded monthly. If you remember, there are 12 months in a year. Just means we take the interest and divide it by 12, and that's how much you will be making each month. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And we're also depositing an additional $100 each month after. Write a recursive function to model this situation. Okay, what that's going to look like is, let's see, oh, I've got to switch paper here. Do this. Okay, so we know our first term. I'm just gonna call it our first term regardless of what day it is. You can always explain, or what month it is, you can always explain that in your answer. Is going to be $500. Okay, so what are we gonna do with that $500? We're gonna take that $500, we're gonna multiply it by the amount of interest you're gonna earn, compounded monthly, we're doing this all in month, which is 10%, 0.1 divided by 12. Now remember, we have to add that entire fraction to the original 500 because that's 100%, right? So it's gonna be, if you distributed this, it'd be our 500 plus our additional 10% divided by 12, our monthly interest. But then also each month, what am I doing? I am adding $100. So to find any n value, what this is going to do is give us our next term, right? Our next term, or the n plus 1 value. So to find the n value, you have to take the n minus 1 value. So instead of 500, we're going to put our u sub n minus 1, whatever that is, whatever the answer was, but then we're just going to do the same thing to it, right? We are going to multiply it times 1 plus 0.1 over 12, and then we're going to add 100. And then find the next term, and then you can do it all over again, okay? This is not the explicit form. This one's closer to the explicit form, but still not exactly because we don't have an exponent, but all it wants is the recursive form here. If you want to take it to that next step, since we're using u sub 1, our n would have to be greater than or equal to 2, right? Because if I put 2 in for n, 2 minus 1 is 1, which gives us the lowest value that we were given. Okay, let's see, that was 6. Number 7, Tiffany needs to practice playing her viola for a competition. She starts by practicing 40 minutes each day, and it increases by 6 minutes each day. Write a recursive function for this scenario. This is a little bit easier, just an arithmetic. U sub 1 equals 40 minutes a day, right? And what that means is U sub n is going to be the term before it. How much is she adding each day? Plus 6 minutes, where n is greater than or equal to 2, since I used u sub 0. Or u sub 1, I'm sorry, please do not get that confused. Had I used u sub 0, let's just rewrite that so we are on the same page, is 40. This stays the same, adding 6 to each day, but my n would have to be only greater than or equal to 1 since I used u sub 0. For question number 8, I'm going to let you try that on your own. Try on own, we'll go over it in class. Because everybody's question is going to be different. Let's make up your own. Go over in class. I will let you know on the test, you don't make up your own. But I think I wanted to get you thinking about how it was working. The question on the test is going to be a lot easier than this one. Number 9, let's go over this, but I will tell you the question on the test is going to be harder than this one. So remind me in class before the test that we go over a harder version of this, but let's start with this. Jack takes a capsule containing 20 milligrams of a prescribed allergy medicine in the morning. There we go. 25% is gone a day later. He doesn't want any more medicine in his body and continues to eliminate 25% of the remaining medicine each day. Write a recursive formula for the daily amount of this medicine in Jack's body. When will there be less than 1 milligram? So, what did I do? U sub 1 is, how much did he do? 20. Right? And then if we want to know how much is left in his body and 25% is leaving, then 75% is staying. Which answer do I want? I want how much is still in his body, so I'm going to multiply by 0.75. So this was, it wanted a recursive, right, a recursive form, yeah. So U sub n equals the day before times 0.75. In my case, n is greater than or equal to 2. And I think I put this in my calculadora already. Did I write it? Oh, you guys, check this. If you go into your y equals, oh, it's gone. Maybe it's not gone. Oh, no, it's gone. Well, we'll re-put it in. My minimum is 1. Do you see this? If I'm in sequence mode and I go to y equals, I get to this screen. So my minimum is 1, and then my formula is, for the formula, I put in the explicit function to get my table. So the explicit function was 20, the original 20 times 0.75 to the power of n minus 1. Okay, and I put that in there so that I could, if you go second graph, which is the table now, I can see my days. So on the first day he takes it, he has 20, and then it's steadily decreasing, but what we're keeping track of is the 75% that he has left in his body. But if I can go to this table, I had to put the explicit function in, even though the question asked me for a recursive function, but I can go down and then see really easily on which day he has less than 1, and that is the 12th day he has less than 1 milligram left. So he has less than 1 milligram by the 12th day. Okay, we will go over this again. Good luck with your studying, and please bring all questions with you tomorrow.